wano wetutuuse tuyimuke ffenna tutaase ensi yaffe kikakatako obuvunaanyizibwa bwange obuvunaanyizibwa bwa ffenna Kyagulanyi wherever you are ffenna gye tuli tukole kitukakatako okulaba nti tutereeza eggwanga Uganda. Kabaka waffe tutumanyi wa gyali Ronald Muwenda Mutebi II tukyayongera okusitula amaloboozi okulaba kabaka waffe afunibwa era okulaba tutereeza eggwanga Uganda tufune enfuga ey'eddembe ng'amaanyi gali mu bantu eyo ye people power. President Kyagulanyi Ssentamu Robert Bobi bwatu eva bwatugamba kituba tugoberera ati nno leero waliwo bino tumale okufuna wano tutandike empola.
And we are yet to see the outcome. Increased participation of all citizens. What does this mean in a federalistic state? Federalism increases citizen participation in political office, allows more people to run and hold positions in various areas, counties, districts, school districts. Okay? All these help to bring variety of perspectives and innovations to local development. Local leaders are often perceived more manageable, keyword more manageable, responsive than national government officials due to their close proximity to the local population. I know my people better than the government knows. Improved efficiency. Oh, students, this is critical. Local government may lead to inefficiency, but governing a nation from it, the national capital can result in worse outcomes, as we have seen. In other words, need to tell you for the last so many years in Uganda, some people moved about government offices and ministries. That has led to inefficiency, deliverance of services, resource waste, fraud, and corruption. Central government controls over everything. In a nation, that leads to bureaucracy, delay, and confusion, as illustrated by policing schools, roads, garbage collection, street lightening, and water. Ensuring policy responsiveness in a federalistic government. A centralized government, ladies and gentlemen, lacks citizen engagement, but a federalism allows multiple layers competing governments for performance, enabling better policy reflection. May I urge you, students, this morning to you that people and business can effectively participate by reallocating districts and communities to align with their personal policy preferences than gagging me with a policy that doesn't work for me and for my region. In others, the central government instead should come up with policies that come with incentives for the citizens to move between regions and to encourage for diversity and inclusivity. Mobility failures enhances citizen preferences, public policy alignment, and promotes this competition in a federalistic system of government. We have competition. We believe in capitalism, ladies and gentlemen. So the citizen argument is increased government levels, increases political engagement, keyword, political engagement in a federalistic system of government. Restructuring, creating closer political levers to the public than the central government. Citizens often show increased engagement when they have a direct stake in a region governance. In other words, if I come from Buganda, I'll be more aligned, I'll be more closer, more passionate to agitate and to fight for the region, for my village where I come from, than if I'm not coming in that region. Okay? So citizens often show increased engagement. Federal systems are designed to accommodate, keyword, accommodate diverse viewpoints by allowing regions to adopt policies that are tailored, students, that are tailored to their unique cultural, economic, and social values in that context. So the democracy argument is tiers of government with fewer citizens promote democratic voting. Vote weight, informed participation by making political decisions more accessible to the average citizen. Comrades, federalism promotes democratic equalization by ensuring the responsible use of natural resources, in situations where current laws may not be feasible for settlement. Experimental and innovation. What does federalism do, colleagues? May I submit to you this morning that federalism promotes policy experimentation and innovation. What does this mean? It enables states, districts, regions to test new solutions to social and economic problems without waiting for central government and guidance. Okay? As such, federalism can serve as a progressive tool. Keyword, federalism. Go slow here, Professor Sejinja. Federalism can serve as a progressive tool. Some even contend that it can establish the laboratories of democracy, that a policy that works in one state can end up being adopted in whole entire nation. National and cultural division. National and cultural differences exist, especially when they stem from a comparative natural territorial dynamics, the hallmark of federalism. It seems improbable that a unitary state adhering to liberal democratic ideals will be able to establish a national identity strong enough to mitigate the conflicts that result from different groups having to cohabit in the same political space in a nation made up of various ethnic original groups. In certain cultures, students, central government efforts to establish a national identity may elicit aggressive response due to a perceived majority representation, raising concerns about equity and determination. Okay? And so, critical areas to deal with instituting federalism in Uganda. Federalism cannot exist without a strong constitution. What are the weaknesses or loopholes in the current Uganda constitution? Ladies and gentlemen, may I submit to you, these are the weakest of points. The backdoor deals, gift giving, gift awards within the hallmarks of Ugandan government, guards against conflicts in the presidential corruption. Colleagues, in our American Constitution, it prohibits federal government receiving gifts, receiving awards, receiving anything that may look at it in a way that doesn't form with whatever it forms. Identifying the areas of compromise. What are those areas of Ugandan constitution that require compromise and cohesion? What are the areas that will require compromise for national unity? What are these? What form of government do we need for new Uganda? How do we strengthen Uganda's constitution and avoid it being trampled on? How do we create checks and balances? How do we create a national unity that fosters uniqueness? Federalism, the nation, students, declares war, maintains armed forces, regulates interests and foreign trade, admits new states, establishes post offices, sets standards and weights, make money, establishes a foreign policy, make all laws and regulations as it does. Okay, hold on, students. Let me plug in my laptop for a minute. Okay. So the nation makes money, establishes foreign policy, makes laws, shared. We maintain law and order, we levy taxes, we charter banks, we establish courts, we provide public welfare. Districts, regions, establishes and maintains schools, establishes and local governments, regulates business, marriage laws, provide public safety, delegates the national government, and prohibits to the state. Students, we are reaching to the conclusion now, and I want to be very cautious and very careful with this. Uganda has undergone periods of both unitary and federal governance. Regrettably, the preference of unitarianism over federalism resulted in power centralization and weakened central and traditional states. The clash between Buganda nationalism and Uganda nationalism added the complexity of this and it will continue to be agitated. 2. Federalism advocates have traditionally concentrated on persuading the central government to negotiate the restoration of federal governance. Yet this method might require revolution in light of evolving political, demographic, and economic circumstances. It is essential to devise a fresh strategy to involve a new generation with the concept of federalism. 3. The proposal to establish a grassroots movement throughout Uganda to advocate for federalism. The messaging will resonate across various generations, highlighting universal acknowledged democratic rights. The aim is to position federalism as a foundation for enduring peace, joy, prosperity, and stability within Uganda and the broader African continent. Okay? Federalism presents an alternative to Uganda's existing unitary government system. Adapting strategies and engaging a wider audience are crucial to accomplishing this objective. Okay, so those are my concluding remarks, students. Now, I want you to understand one thing, and one thing only. In line with what I have spoken to you, I want you to understand that federalism will not be granted to us by the current regime in its expose. One, I repeat, federalism will not be granted to Uganda, to Buganda, to other regions within this expose of the junta system that we have. 2, a wide understanding of knowledge sharing about federalism is critical and key. I am a student of federalism. I teach federalism. I sent 4 scholars from our university to meet Katikiro Peter Maiga in Bulange about federalism. I have spoken many times to our current Katikiro about federalism. I still agitate for federalism. I have spoken to our President Kyagulanyi, about federalism. We can do our politics regardless of the political atmosphere where you come from. We can push, as we will continue to push, but the hallmark that will create everlasting peace and stability is that federalism identifier. Busoga region will do what it needs to do to protect its assets and properties. Acholi region, you remember what happened with the Balalo immigrants that had gone in through their federalistic hierarchy, they were taken away, returned back to where they come from. Each region propagates its own understanding as a hallmark for establishment of peace and reconciliation. I am an American citizen first. I swear the oath to protect, to defend the Constitution of America. As our flag behind me so says, we believe in the foundations of federalism. We do what we want to do, and the federal government doesn't pay a damn thing about what we do. As a state, as a county, and other countries do the same. This is what makes America great. The affairs of its constitution. That's why students of democracy come to Washington every year to study its democracy and the foundation of democratic ideals. And so with that, ladies and gentlemen, may I submit to you that federalism as the hallmark has been so much delighted and so much agitated by scholars and academicians. We have so many other bloggers, so many other teachers of federalism in their own understanding. My own way of federalism, the way I understand it and the way I teach it, is I'm teaching it from an American perspective that was taught to me by my teachers and my former Katikiro Joseph Semogerere. And so may I submit to you that if you and I agree, we will continue to agitate, to push forward to the principles and to the ideal of that. A question of the day, how would you do and what would you do about federalism? We'll send that question over there, and it will continue to be. And then, of course, we have so many other references. The Federal Question of Uganda by Yasin Olumu, The Case for Federalism by David F. Kempanga, Federalism in its Agitation by Owech-Tibwa Joseph Mulyanyamulisemogerere. Thanks very much, students, for listening, comrades and guests to today's session. I turn the time over to Joseph for continued questions, comments, and the likes. I submit.
Well, thank you so much, Professor Sejinja. Actually, I've been looking forward to this session. Also, one of my favorite topics, federalism. I'm also a student of federalism, and so this was very refreshing. Thank you so much for an excellent presentation. Just a few remarks or comments before I turn it over to the audience for questions. As I said, indeed, the stability of Uganda is really predicated on us having regional capacity for self-determination on issues that concern them, issues such as land, culture, economic development, and issues that are not shared by everyone else. You know, like in Uganda, we don't share the same values or system as in the Choli, so the Choli may want to do certain things differently from how we do them in Uganda. Federalism allows for that, you know, independence to be able to experiment. And of course, you mentioned about the federalism as a national incubator of ideas in the United States. Ideas that come from California. California adopts something, creates something, and they do very well, and all the other states and even the federal government copies it. So federalism allows, it's an incubator of you know, competition and also ideas and policies, which then, if it succeeds in Uganda or Choli, we also can learn from it. Other regions can learn from it, and as a nation as a whole grows and benefits from that system. Now, the other point, and which is very critical, which perhaps we did not mention, federalism is not only in Uganda, but in many African countries, which were colonial creations, is a way to decolonize, deconstruction of a colonial state. Federalism is one way to deconstruct the colonial state. And by that, I mean, each of the regions in Uganda and in many other African countries had their political systems and ways of organization, which were more or less erased by this unitary system, which was imposed on us by the Europeans and brought their laws and all the system, which we, even elites that have studied, none of these Westminster's laws and just judicial systems, we actually have not fully internalized this system. Now, the best of colonial or British or American understanding from their history, they've created these laws, innocent until proven guilty. Most of our people don't know how to, they never internalize this external system. But well, if we create this federalism is implemented, regions can, you know, like for instance, when the Cholis were dealing with Kony, you know, reconciliation, even in Rwanda, they said, well, we don't believe in this punitive, we need punitive system of justice. we need some kind of reconciliation. We have to resolve our issues, our conflict within our societies using our traditional system of justice, reconciliation, confession, and all that kind of stuff. But the European system is one of, it's totally quite different. So federalism allows for each region to implement some of the systems based on their traditions and cultures that work for them. So that is the deconstruction of colonial state, and that really kind of enables, as you said, more engagement by population into their own governance, and even holding their leaders accountable. During the pre-colonial state, yes, there were issues, but for the most part, people's even in kingdom states, which were a bit autocratic, people had a way to hold their leaders accountable, and so. There was no such thing as, like I steal $10 million and then I just go to court and I hire a great lawyer and gets me off the hook. People will be like, oh, we know you, like these traditional councils. In fact, an example of that is Botswana. Botswana is not a federal system per se, but it retained part of its traditional systems, and it's what has enabled Botswana to be one of the most successful African countries, because they use their tradition, they incorporated some of their traditional systems into their governance, and it has enabled them to more or less control corruption and issues like that. So federalism allows us to do that. Now, the other thing, you talked about the regional tier. Even countries like, some people say when you talk about federalism, say, well, look at Nigeria, look at Ethiopia. They say, well, if you're talking about federalism, we solve all the issues. Look at Nigeria. Nigeria says it's federal. Ethiopia says it's federal. Federalism, basically, you can call yourself federal, but as you said, there is a higher level of decentralization. Nigeria and Ethiopia is more or less an example of a higher level of decentralization, because the central government still more or less decides what happens at all levels of government. So for federalism to be real, the power of regional and the federal and the national government are entrenched in the constitution. And for real federal systems, no level, not the lower levels, nor the federal government can overrule what is constitutionally entrenched. There is a division of powers between the regions and the federal government, and these are constitutionally entrenched. The central government can't override those, neither could the lower governments. So that's what federalism is. So now, when it comes to Uganda's situation, federalism, why is it that there is a lot of controversy? I submit that to independence, the Monster Commission, I think, did not necessarily. I think we rushed into that constitution making process because of course there was the issues of certain regions were a bit considered more privileged and more resource endowed. So some regions are like, well, we have more. We prefer to be ruled under the unitary system because we are not at the same level as these people. Which was unfortunately, and then it recommended for that federalism for Uganda and some kingdoms. I think that was not ideal, and I think that's partly why the reason, because it was an asymmetric system. It created an impression that some regions were more privileged than others. I mean, I think what needed to happen is to add, to say, well, we need to have a federal system, even though it was more or less same federal at the time, but I think it should have been, even though we didn't have the same system, but all the regions should have had the same, as federal systems are, the Nigerian federal systems are. All the regions should have had the same kind of powers, so to speak, not one region kind of being so-called a state within a state. All the regions should have been states within states with the same powers, similar powers, and all that. So I think that was a bit of a mistake whereby it was seen like some regions were issued, even though it was not the fault of Uganda and others that got it because they demanded for it, while others, but the British knew better to, if they wanted us to not be divided, they should have ensured that we had a uniform system that is, kind of was similar in all regions. Now when it comes to, and that's why I think it's seen as a Uganda-centric question, but as for me as a student in federalism, I think we have to go beyond that issue of Uganda, because this is federalism is an international system. And of course, in my studies of federalism, I looked at Germany, Netherlands, Switzerland, Belgium, Canada, Australia. All these are, of course, the United States federal countries. In many of these countries, like Belgium, Netherlands, and Switzerland, and to some extent Canada, but mostly these Netherlands, Switzerland, Belgium, they're ethnic. Basically, federalism in those countries took into diversity, as I said, managing diversity. Like regions. In many of these countries, they have ethnic regions which were managed. They had like regional self, governance. So in Uganda, people talk about tribalism, but the key thing about federalism, as a federal entity, people are free. We're still under one country, except that each region has the capacity to determine some issues of like language policies, cultural policies, economic self-determination within the region. But people does not exclude people from living anywhere they want, from settling anywhere they want, except that when I move from Uganda to Acholi, of course, I will be subject to some of the laws and norms of that region, of Acholi region. But we're still one country. It's not like we're exclusive, like a country, or if you can't own land, you can't invest, you can't get employment in Acholi. The national constitution kind of gives rights to all citizens of that country. The federal government, the federal units deal with issues that concern them locally, but that doesn't mean that, so it shouldn't be a threat that if Uganda or Acholi or whatever gets federalism, then somehow we are not going to be, they're going to be, basically, if Uganda is doing well, it's of a benefit because I could go to Uganda and get a job there. I could, the country as a whole grows and prospers, instead of saying, because Uganda may do so well, you're going to make sure they don't get it and then lower everyone's prospects, the country's prospects. Like in the US, if California is prospering, we learn a lot from it. The country as a whole's economy grows. So this is the same with federalism. If each of the regions experiments and does a lot of, for instance, federalism grants regions, capacity to exploit some of their resources in their land, meaning they share a big percentage or a substantial percentage of revenues that come out of resources in their land. In Munyoro, there is oil. They could keep maybe 30% of that revenue to do whatever they want, and then 37% goes to the central government, and the central government redistributes the resources. So federalism has this equalization stipulations whereby the regions keep a certain amount, and then the central government redistributes money, because the central government still collects more money than each of the regions, because the larger percentage of revenue it still goes to the central government. Then the central government redistributes, especially to regions that may not be as endowed or may have issues. The central government gives grants and to equalize economic development, sets national policies. It sets certain national guidelines, but the regions have capacity to set their own guidelines and what they need to achieve for themselves. So this issue of threat, that federalism is going to favor other regions and others, I think is very mistaken. And again, as Professor Sejin said, it's about educating ourselves about what federalism is and what it can provide. So pretty much, and of course, finally, the Odoki Commission. The Odoki Commission, which was preceded the 1995 Constitution. The Odoki Commission went all over the country, went all over Uganda and educated people. Actually, they had a document, which I have a copy of somewhere. I had a copy of it, which had all the issues. What is the unitary government? What is federalism? What is the history of Uganda? And they went throughout Uganda and met with people in all the regions of Uganda and educated them about the issues and what the different types of governments are, unitary, federalism, etc. And the report that came out of the Odoki Commission showed that over 90% of Ugandans wanted a federal system of government. This is after, that was, of course, a long time ago. People will say, well, that was a long time ago. But yes, 1995, before this constitution, the Ugandans that were consulted, the discussions that came out of all over Uganda, after being educated about what federalism and unitarism are, they said they wanted federalism. But then what happened? Museveni wants centralization of power, and he knew that when you have these regions with the capacity to check his power to do whatever it wants, it could not, perhaps it would not have been in power this long, because federalism creates a lot of powers, grants a lot of powers to even, for instance, when it comes to elections management, the regions have the capacity, they manage the elections locally in their region, meaning the central government can't bring in the military and whatever to abduct and whatever. So Museveni could not, through elections, have been in power this long if he had a federal system, because his region would manage these electoral processes locally. So Museveni obviously became was opposed to it, and he killed it. Even though they say this. There were a lot of different elements within that. And of course, they're still opposed to it. And all the dictatorships, all the dictators don't want federalism. Anyone wants the power in their hand to have absolute power. They don't want federalism. They want to be able to be the kings that decide everything. So in short, we need federalism for the country to move forward. And it's not only in Uganda, in many other African countries are also agitating for the same, because they realize that these colonial entities that are basically colonial creations disempower them and rob them of their cultural integrity. So thank you so much, Professor Sejinja. And with that, I will I know it's almost out of time. If anyone has any questions, please do ask or comments. Or Professor Sejinja, I don't know if you want to say something before anyone.
Yes, yeah. Thank you very much, Joseph. I really like that. I want to share one more thing to our students about. I want to read this quote to them, and then we could wrap it up. And it says that when justice seizes authority from other branches of federal government as well as state and local governments under the rubric of judicial review, that's tyranny. So this again, once the absence of federalism, then governments, authoritative regimes seize power, and it ceases. And then of course, the last one is this is the homework. Explain the potential conflicts of establishing federalism as form of governance in Uganda, given the history and current political landscape. So for those students that are doing homework, this is your assignment. Provide possible remedies or solutions to the conflicts you have provided in question 1. Now, students, remember, I need this answered by Thursday, because I'm wrapping up all your grading, because next week, Saturday, is going to be our graduation and award certificates to the students that have been so decent in getting all this going. And so please hand in your questions by this Thursday. And I turn the time over to you, Joseph, for questions and answers from the audience. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Professor Sejinja. Boston, please, I think that's Mr. Marvin, please unmute and ask your question. No, Boston? No, Boston, can you unmute? Or otherwise we'll move on to someone else. No, Boston, can you unmute? And okay. All right, I'll go to Mimi then. If nope. Okay, one more time. Nope. No, Boston. All right, okay. Mimi, can you please unmute? And I don't know, am I having issues with them? Okay, yeah, Mimi, please.
Thank you so much, Professor Sejinja, for this lecture. It was really informative. I think for me, I think it's just a comment, and I have to say something that I really liked about the lecture is that if, just let us imagine for a moment, if each region can be able to protect its lands, its people, its properties, and anybody that comes in the region is adding value, not people who bring no sense, and killing other people and stealing other people's lands, How would Uganda be? Uganda would be more developed because the local people know the schools they have to develop. They make sure their areas are developed. Then the diaspora, we have so many diaspora coming from all over Uganda. They can go back and invest in their regions. We can all go back and invest in those regions to make them better. But having to run everything that happens in Uganda, taxes, you go run to the state house. This happened, you run to the state house. Uganda, we are devolved. We can't just stay in that kind of governance where every time every issue comes, you run to the president to decide what to do. Uganda, where are we staying on that everything? Oh, government to Yambe. Government cannot manage every your stuck, your tunnels that are stuck, your roads in your village. Government help us. Government should be focusing on keeping the borders, people who get onto the airports, people who's coming in and out of the country, who's coming on the waters, in the air and whatever. Those are the things they are supposed to concentrate on and come up with technology that can help us protect the nation. Now they are the ones policing, looking for no people in every village. Instead of looking at the borders, and then they lie to ADF came from somewhere. Where are you on the borders? That is the job the central government is supposed to do, but they are doing the opposite. They are doing the work of the local governments instead of concentrating on what developing technology to protect the country. So Banange, we have to start voicing that as we are protesting. Let us also start thinking about the form of government, because you're not going to wait. We are first removing the dictator to come up with a form of government. Start now thinking of what you want Uganda to be governed as. Thank you so much, everybody. That's it.
Thank you so much, Mimi. That's right. Likely a lot of people have studied federalism and written a lot about federalism. It's just a matter of, I think we need a national conference after we remove the dictatorship, whereby we iron out this issue of federalism. But in terms of the blueprint and all that, there is even a federal constitution somewhere, which not the one I shared, but an actual one which we developed afterwards. Consultation, so that it's just a matter of sitting together as Ugandans and deciding how we want to be governed. So thank you so much, Mimi, for those great points. Reggie, please, and okay, let me see if No Poston is ready to go. No Poston, are you ready to speak? No Poston? Okay.
Yes, I'm ready. I'm ready. It's just that I jumped on another call immediately, I think, when you gave me the rights. First of all, greetings to everyone. My name is Marvin, and I'm the Boston chapter leader. I want to thank everybody for being here. Every person in the struggle, whatever that you're doing to add value to the struggle, we want to thank you all. Professor Sejinja, thank you so much. On several occasions, we've been together on different trainings, leadership. We value your energy, we value your knowledge, and everything you're trying to put together. My question is, this is very good. We've been hearing federalism since we've been in school. I particularly studied partly in Uganda, and this has been taught in the past, at least when it's been mentioned in the past. It's not until that you get to grow up, then you get to understand. When you travel, you get to understand the impact of the federal system and how helpful it is to develop. As we all know, Museveni wants to centralize everything into his hands. My question is, I understand you've been speaking to different parties. I know whenever this comes up as a question, everybody jumps on the board of tribalism. Name it all. This is a Baganda thing. This is they're trying to push because probably the resources are lying within that. Now, I'm going to speak a little bit about culture part. As you mentioned, Uganda was divided into different regions, and Buganda, Ankole, name it all. Now, Gaddafi, if you go and you do your research, he wanted to make Africa a one nation, like the way we see United States. And then the rest of the countries become states. On realizing that, Museveni and his group, they saw that as something that was going to overshadow or take over, and it was working. And what Gaddafi actually had embarked on was to reach out, because he realized that every kingdom, every one of us belongs to a kingdom. I might belong to the West, to the Ankole, I might belong to the Acholi, I might belong to, and we listen so much to our kingdom leaders, the so-called kings or the chiefs. For the kingdoms that did not have the kings, they had chiefs. Now, the only way you could bring everybody together is to go through their kingdoms in order to bring everybody on board for a common idea. Because at the end of the day, if I'm a Mugwere and the king of Mugwere spoke to me, I will understand his call of unity. As you mentioned, Professor, that when His Highness came back from the exile, he rallied behind and championed the change that was needed by then. You mentioned of Katonga and the rest of that. Okay, so Gaddafi was trying to push this. That's why he had started reaching out to the different kingdoms. And this was a challenge from Museveni, and Museveni, he plotted on, and the rest, he worked together. Now, as NUP, how can we reach out to the different kingdoms and probably bring them on board? Because to me, I believe if we bring these kingdoms on board, we'll be able to have a very big, massive kind of win that we need over Museveni. Because then they're speaking exactly the language that people understand. In order to speak to somebody, speak the language they understand. You're going to speak to me, Gisu, and I will understand your message loud and clear. So, is there a way we can develop something? This is a revolution, comrades. Is there a way we can develop something where we can bring all the kingdoms on board? I know most of them are under the captive of the government, but what other ways? Is it possible we think of those ways of bringing the kingdoms on board? And once we bring them on board, they will understand that the federalism is going to be benefiting your region. And through that, we'll be able to achieve. And finally, I think such kind of things are very, very important for all of us to learn. There's going to be a national conference of NUP in the diaspora. That is going to happen in Chicago. Why don't we come and discuss such kind of things together? To me, I believe these are things that are going to benefit us as a nation and as a new party, and also to improve on probably on the win that we want to take over. That is all I needed to say, Professor. If there is a way you can bring that and incorporate it such that it does not look like everyone is calling for that, then it's a nation call, but can we bring everybody through us to rally behind us? That's all I needed to say. Thank you so much for listening in, and I wish you a good listening. Thank you.
Professor, you want to respond to that quickly?
I'm going to respond to this. Let me get one or two other questions, and then we'll respond all at once.
Oh, okay. All right. All right. Let's see. Reggie, can you please unmute and
Yes, Joseph.
yes, sir.
How is your day?
I'm well, thank you.
So hopefully I'm not cheating on Professor because he talked about questions. Mine is a supplement, so you probably want to take him back, and then immediately after I'll take home.
Sorry, you can add your comment quickly, please.
Comment quickly.
I mean, yes, if you can. Yes.
Well, I came a little bit late, but I had a little bit of what the professor was putting forward. And yes, definitely. Federalism, for some of us who have worked in a system of federal government, realize how much federalism is beneficial, how much there's more checks and balances. There's also healthy competition between regions because resources are usually specific certain regions. So definitely we need that. This is my fear. And the previous person who just discussed talked about bringing kingdoms together. One, there is no institution that exists without the people. We have people power, okay? We are the kingdom. Unless he's talking about kings, that there should be a council of kings. But if talking about kingdoms, we are already a kingdom. We are people power, okay? So anybody can limit us to parties and whatever they want. We are Ugandans. One of the things that are fundamentally uniting us is that we are under occupation. If there is a Ugandan who starts a discussion without that at the back of their mind, that we are in an occupation, they are only treating symptoms. When you start a discussion knowing that we are under occupation, you are attacking the pathogen. That's the scientific term, or the parasite, or the bacteria. Because time over, we have seen that places that have been under occupation, indigenous people have been officially enemies. You don't have to break the law. No, the occupiers are exempt. They can abuse the law anytime, and they will abuse the law to create an offense on you. That is what is happening in Uganda. They have proven it, they have shown it to you. But until an indigenous Ugandan realizes that they have been declared an enemy, everything I do that is geared to developing this land is creating value for indigenous people, and I'm a threat. I am going to be imprisoned. I am going to be maliced. I am going to be poisoned. Anybody. Go and ask Red Indians in the United States. Go and ask Aborigines in Australia. Then you're going to realize, because once they put on you that you have an expiry date, that is it. Everything happening in Uganda, everything is to cripple an indigenous person. So they have their own language, they are exempt. Their businesses are exempt. They don't pay taxes. They'll bring foreigners, they don't pay taxes. And you, the Ugandan, you'll be made to compete with the same foreigner for the same products who is not paying taxes. Now, until Ugandans grow up and realize, then we are only discussing symptoms. We are people power. We know what we're dealing with. We shall overcome. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Reggie. That was perfect. Actually, you said pretty much what I wanted to say, especially when it regards to bring kingdoms on board, as Marvin was saying. As you said, we are people power, and basically it's about reaching out. You know, people conflate kingdoms with federalism. Federalism is not about kingdoms. Countries like Germany, Netherlands, I mean, like so many of these countries, Belgium, don't have kings, but they have federal. In the United States, they don't have a king. It's about having the regions self-determined, the people in the region governing themselves. So, you know, electing, whether it's a king or a governor, whoever they call him, you know, of course, the issues of how do you choose who's going to lead that region, you know, whether election, whatever. So, you know, that is what it is about. So it's about not reaching out to the people and mobilizing them and educating them about what, you know, how we should move Uganda to the next stage, you know, empowering them. You know, you don't have to necessarily talk to the king. As I said, we are people power, empower the people, talk to the people, engage them and educate them and have them agitate jointly, nationwide, for a system that empowers them. So thank you so much, Reggie, for that. Now I'm going to pick on Rob. Can you please speak?
Yeah, hello, good afternoon. Well, it's good afternoon here in the UK. I'd like to thank you all for submitting in. Thank you, Professor David. What an eloquent presentation with the federalism. And big thanks to DOCA. She's been struggling to get me onto this training, which prior engagements, I couldn't get into it. But anyway, straight to the point. Professor David, I don't know how much you engage with the administration at Mengo, because if we're going to go back, this is all started from the colonialists. They traveled from wherever they came from. Now the central region, as we hear central region, they had to go through some kingdoms before they got the central region. So something inspired them to settle in the central region, to create the administrative systems in central region. And I believe that's why it's all stemmed down. This is the Buganda thing, this is the Buganda thing, because it all started from the central region. But guess what? How much has the central region educated the masses like you've done it so eloquently this afternoon is the big question. Because in the last few weeks, I don't know about you people, but the particular way you came around suggesting to gather up all the tribal causes, jail them, prison them, beat them up, that kind of language, it's not like an inspiring language to the masses who are looking for federalism. Second, I realized that you mentioned something about this whole generation, in my generation, I didn't see much of federalism. It's all been the unitary army, coup d'etats. It's been a total mess. So there's lack of education or knowledge about federalism. So people are yearning for that. And it's all going back to the leaders of Mengo. Especially, they're supposed to be possibly imposed Takatiku. I'm sorry to say this. That's why I say it. Because it all starts from the people. Once the people rage against you, then there you are. And then we get this young man from Magere who nobody knew, but he's speaking the language of the people, the masses. That's why he's speaking on side of the people, for the people, by the people. So how much of this information do you share with the leaders of Mengo to spread the word of federalism? Thank you.
Thank you, Rob. Just my quick comment on that. I think we, again, federalism has to transcend, it should be a national discussion. Should transcend Mengo, because if Mengo is going to be educating the rest of the country about federalism, which they already tried, again, the issue of Uganda, you know, it's a Uganda system, Uganda wants it, so we don't want it. So I think it's up to the political parties, political leadership, like Honorable Chagulanyi and others, to educate, you know, because this is a national system and each region has its own likes and dislikes, educate them, okay, to empower ourselves, we need to do this. Mengo is just one entity within Uganda. They've submitted reports to the Constitutional Commission. They've come out on federalism. Their reports can be found anywhere. Yeah, they can speak about it. They can educate their people locally, but I think it's up to the national leaders, the political parties, to go nationwide and educate people. I think we should not give Mengo too much importance when it comes to this issue of federalism. It's very, very important, but federalism is the national system. Everyone has to be on board, and we need a national conference. So thank you so much for those comments, but I think this should be beyond Mengo to everyone else. It's about us, Ugandans, people power, as Reggie said, educating ourselves or having parties of people who have information to go out throughout the country, like the Royal Commission did. This was not the kingdom. They went all the country and they educated people about the different systems, and people decided on a federalism. So this is the same kind of similar approach we need to have. So thank you so much. That's just a quick comment. Everest, can you please unmute and say something?
Yeah, thank you very much, Brother Joseph Senyonjo and our Professor David Sejinja. I'm glad he has been so eloquent in this presentation he has given us this afternoon. Possibly, I would raise this concern I have as a person. The federal issue has been so beautiful, but I think he has not helped us to put us to the current situation where the dollar is being dished to these countries and particularly to destroy them. How is he going to assure us that much as our federal is there, is going to be stronger than this dollar? And how are we going to engage our population from the rational to the crazy one, that the federal system will be able to protect them against these superpowers which are destroying the human race? Thank you, Mr. Sejinja.
Yeah, thank you so much. Professor Sejinja can answer, but like my commentary, because I won't have time after this. I think, of course, when you talk about the dollar and its foreign influence kind of determining our fate in Africa. I mean, first, if you're weak, if you're not strong within yourself, it's easier to, and if you have like puppet presidents that serve foreign interests, not your own interests, like Museveni and others, it's easier for them to rule over you. But when it comes to the issue of the dollar, that's about economic management. We are very weak economically because, again, everything is centralized. There's not a lot of economic, vibrancy within each of the regions because everything is centralized and they decide whether or not you can build an industry or whatever. So once we have that internally and other African countries have that, and they organize, we can then be a counterweight. First of all, we have strong economies because the strength of our currencies has to do with this economic stability and all the different things and our economic strength. But then after we get ourselves together, we can work with our neighbors in Kenya and Tanzania. Kenya is also moving towards, by the way, there's been a debate about federalism in Kenya, and that's why they had this new constitution, which created, it's not really a federal system, but it's an attempt at federalism in Kenya. The provinces, they have governors and all that kind of stuff. So they're moving towards that. In Congo, there was also a debate for federalism. In Cameroon, there was a debate on federalism. Because again, all these countries were colonial creations. And that's why you have a lot of conflicts in the Congo, like regions in Kinshasa so far away. And a lot of these regions are like at the mercy of being ravaged because they don't have the capacity to protect themselves. They don't have governments to protect their resources. They don't have regional whatever. So once we get ourselves together within Uganda, Kenya gets itself, we can then work together jointly, from this position of strength, find a mechanism to counterbalance these Western interests. So thank you so much. Now let me go to Demi. I think Demi is the last person, and then Professor Sejinja will answer all the questions and concerns. Thank you. Demi, please.
Hiya, everyone. Can you hear me now?
Yes,
Can you hear me? Yeah, okay. I've got 4 points, but short one. Number one, I love what I heard. I think it's a good topic, and we should buy this. I would ask the locals to post us slides. From the content I heard, I think it's going to be a big challenge to to AP or city people power, depending on the courage of people we have, like who keeps on saying, we don't want this, it's a bit of a challenge because it's going to take something to establish or to implement this, because the professor says that even if we are under junta, we can still do this in our way. Point number 3 is a question to me. I've seen the 5 key points, and my question to the professor, does he think we need to update or to reframe those 5 key points? Because from what I see, they might be a little bit outdated to the generation that we have of today. The last point I have, that it is high time that comrades in the NUP and People Power, that we start totally accepting people that who come from academia world, because there is a lot they can offer. We cannot go with the emotional rants, whatever, because when you look at all these civil education we are having, they are not easy for people to grasp, but we need to adapt that slowly. Those are my 4 points. Thank you so much for giving me the opportunity.
Thank you very much. I appreciate our comrade students that have asked questions. Question number 1, thank you so much for the great work you're doing in our Boston chapter. And let me send a shout out for all of you that are on this forum. Please register for what you about know people conference in August. I'm going to be there, and I'm going to be teaching and empowering and assisting about leadership training modules. I'm leading a team of 4 faculty and professors from the university. And so please, if you have done so, to register, number 1. Number 2, Marvin, your question was, how do we bring chiefs and kings on board about federalism and its agitation? 40% of sons, children of chiefs are state-sponsored, except in Central Kingdom. I repeat, a huge majority of children going through university scholarships are in setups. How do you tell such a king or such a come on board and sensitize her own people, knowing there is a backbone, there is a behind-the-scene scholarship measure? 2, look at the wedding of Chazim. How was Chazim? Many of these chiefs feel the need of federalism quietly and out loud, but they hesitate because of thinking they lose the golden power that is built for protection and for its inhabitants. That's what I can say. Do you know how many times we asked those chiefs to come and fly into the United States for a meeting or for a conference in Kasese and in Acholi and in Lango? And may I submit to you, even our Uganda Kingdom in Mengo, do you know how many have invited, how many have rejected? I said, sorry, no. Oh no, Professor, not in Uganda, but in Uganda, please change that. Then we may consider coming. Sorry, Professor, said, you wish to apologize that we won't be in attendance for your conference. Number 2, Rob, I totally agree with your sentiments. Question, how many times have I been able to communicate, to contact through my networks and links to the Mengo? On few occasions that I've met Katikiro, I have told specifically him, Katikiro, we need a federalistic system. And as if my voice was going off to a different direction, I dispatched a team of 3 faculty from our political science department to go to Mengo. They had a photo show up on the ladders of Mengo, but under the closed door meeting, after our discussion, we have the best way for Uganda, and for Uganda is a federal system. Is what Katikiro said. Yeah, Professor Andrew, it's definitely the best route for us to go on, and we shall sure implement it. That's where we are. I have never got any results after that engagement meeting, but we're still pushing. We're not losing hope. I totally agree with your sentiments. Fear and fatigue and defeat and frustration. The community breakdown, the bureaucracy within the system makes hard for even meaningful dialogue and resolutions to come to pass. So what we do, you ask the question, how do sensitization and awareness? How many of our Buganda Kingdom schools we have? Is tourism good? Oh no. Is civic education? Oh no. How about the context of Ugandan public education? Is tourism on the curriculum? No. But still, does that mean defeat? No. We can still, in our own means and accuracy, do what we need to do to promote, to propagate, and to create awareness within that context of why federalism is important. 30 years from now, ladies and gentlemen, I to you at a meeting in the United Nations, it came out to be that 80% of Ugandans want to be what in education, they want to know about federalism, all any betterment of system, besides the unitary system of governance, lack of education, lack of civic engagement, compromise, bribery, and corruption as a way to shut your mouth up, the media position, shut your mouth up, let me give you scholarship to Russia and start on petroleum, shut your mouth up, we'll give you a Mercedes and SUV protection, and then we'll protect your children and us and our eyes, and we'll make sure that you succeed in all life and the pursuit of happiness in the way you saw fit. And so we have on that angle. Then Ademi, you asked about the 4 critical areas the Buganda monarchy, the dynasty, and its agitation for, number one, properties that have been seized. Number two, land tenure system. Number three, the king and his rights and his federalistic stature and what he wants to do. And number four, and the culture norms and its propagation. Do we need to change that? No, we need to continue sticking to those demands. We are demanding a federalistic system. We are demanding the rights of culture and norm and sensitization. We are demanding for the propagation of all as it needs to be within our culture, sensitivity, and all that helps us to make us for who we are and for what we stand for under that federal system. Any change of that will bring our radicals the left into but that's not what they need. But they're not coming up. But that's changing positions. You never know until you meet him under depending on which shape or form you find him. He may say he wants a federalistic system. Tomorrow he says, oh, we want to unite. Then he says, no, I think let leaders lead us. And so in that context, it's got to stay in that context framework. May continue to emphasize the power of the dollar. The amount of money that we can pause in the United States a lot. Actually, your money is one higher in terms of versus our in the US. However, that is even contexted. It's still under the federal system of government. The country prints money and it's shared equally, and then we generate money through taxes and through national building and development, our education institutions, our welfare for our people, our development of technology advances, and all of that. So that can still be balanced equally between regions. But who has promoted this catastrophe of federalism, a Buganda question, a Buganda thing? The propagandists, the reformers are the same people that Museveni and his radicals and his Sifokons keep promoting that. You talk about federalism, oh, you were racist. You don't want national government. You don't want regional balance and its implementation. Okay, let's talk about federalism in Uganda. Wait a minute, let's discuss that about in 5 years. When a new government takes over, federalism will be instituted in a fair way because the president will come from a particular political party, and then other regions also have their own chiefs who want affairs, and federalism will be supported by the general people that are in power. So it won't be any inconvenience. So in conclusion, my friends, may I submit to you that I look forward to see you next week Saturday. It's going to be our final lecture with our distinguished women, Shaketi and Chitami, and they're going to teach about women in the revolution and its symbols. And also, we are going to be awarding certificates of students and colleagues that have been participating in this, and then it will be our final closure of this lecture. And then the summer will kick up. And we thank you so much for the executive, for Joseph and your board members and Dorcas. And we thank you also for your persistence and waking up early and being able to tune in within this context. I thank you so much. And your willingness as we continue to move forward with servant leadership as the way to incorporate within the context of federalism. Joseph, I turn the time over to you. The pulpit is yours.
Thank you so much, Professor Sejinja. This has been a extraordinarily good discussion, great education as regards our governance of our nation. And way forward, as I said, I think, in my opinion, that's the only way we're going to achieve the development and prosperity and peace that we need in Uganda. Because it's not going to go away. And of course, now, conclusion is federalism, the national issues, not just issues that we recognize, just like one issue, development nationwide to determine our issues, whether it's jobs, whether it's land, but cultural self-determination, all issues that protect our environment, protect our rights, against Chinese enforcement, protecting everything that is here as and on local. And thank you so much, everyone, for your contributions. It's been an excellent discussion. I think we need more of these education seminars, especially on this particular issue. Wherever you know, we will be. I think a lot of us will be happy to engage if you have another conference on federalism. I actually did see that, but I think I was caught up. I was not able to attend that conference. But I am also a student of federalism in the sense that I've been very engaged in it for a very, very long time. So maybe we can talk about that another time. But thank you so much for sitting. This was excellent, and I'm looking forward to my engagement on this issue. And thanks to everyone that participated in this discussion. And of working session will be able to rejoin, so she asked me to close.
One more thing, Joseph, before you close, I have a student, and when he sends in his assignment, he says typing Kabode. So, whoever you or me is typing Kabode, you get it in your typing Kabode. If you're in the audience, please make sure you write your name clearly as it will appear on the certificate. I also want Henry Segwani, if you're on, you sent me one of your first assignment handwritten. Please retype that, and I send an email. So, it's FYI for sending your actual names, I'll let them to appear on our certificates. Thank you very much for that.
Thank you so much. Yes, everyone is here. I'm sure we have you. And thank you. We can reach the close and join our next weekend for the final session of Professor Teyabitegede. So have a good evening, good afternoon, wherever you are. Thank you so much and God bless.
Thanks so much for sharing. Everyone, and goodbye, everyone. Have a good day.
Thank you.
embeera eriwo yakununula ggwanga yaffe mu mbeera yonna nga tukozesa kyonna ekiba kigwanidde olaba tutunomera Uganda olaba tuzza ensi yaffe engulu nga tujja kuba nakyemalira nga tujjako effuga bbi nga tumalawo ekiwamba bantu nga tumalawo ekitta bantu Uganda esobole okuba ensi wamma eyeesiimisa ebeere ddala part of Africa buli muntu abeere ng'agyegomba buli muntu abeere ng'aginyumirwa naye nga tulina okuddiza obuyinza bwaffe ffe bannansi ofe emikono gy'abagwira nga tebatwetaaga bo bakimugonkalinga nsi yaffe ffe batufuula abaddu tetulina okumanyisa ng'obuntu bukyali abategedde gamba bunno naye agambe munne magala nnyo munamiko kale balekako atula bano mu gasta ffe nsaba bakuumire tujja kuba tudamu banagamweraba